Hello, welcome to episode number 85, Joel Fleischman Happy Hour Podcast. I have with me Jon Vaughan from Georgia.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Brand Vaughan Lumber, how you doing?
Doing great. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's a happy hour. You got to have something in your hand.
Yeah, and what are you drinking there from the Big G?
I'm actually drinking a Montucky cold snack. That's from Montana. It's fantastic. Yeah. It's a great beer.
Completely unique label. They really did. They do a good job marketing. It's a good beer. I just
filled it, so they do a good job. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a great one. It's
yeah,
one of my favorites.
So we actually have Drexel Light.
Drexel Light. There you go.
Yes, we actually private labeled our own beer, specially made for us, one of a kind flavor from a local brewery. So we actually have it made it for the builders. So 10 cents of every can goes to the local trade schools. So we have gotten 210 barrels, which is about 15,000 cans in our stores. It's about 20 pallets of beer that we give out to the builders.
We are 60 seconds into this, and you've already done something that blows my mind. You're just different. I love it. I love it.
Great.
That's
great. All right. It has been really fun, and they may pick it up as one of their. We can't resell it; we just have to give it away, right? But they actually might pick it up as one of their brands next year as their seasonal potentially. We hope they'll pick it up. So that would be phenomenal to go to the grocery store and see it for sale. So cool, great stuff. Hi, John. Can you give us a little intro? Who you are, where you're from? Give us your little 30-second elevator speech.
Sure. Yep. So. From Marietta, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. My grandfather started Brand Vaughan Lumber Company with his cousin by marriage and his business partner, R.L. Brand, in 1946 in Southwest Atlanta. They built a great business, had a single location. My dad came into the business in 1976 when Mr. Brand wanted to leave the business. So it's been an all Vaughan business from 1976. I came into the business in 2006. In December of 2006, that was great timing to come into the business. I'd worked at Georgia Pacific out of the University of Georgia. I don't know if can you tell that I'm a Georgia fan? I got the cup, I got the diploma, the whole thing. But came into the business in 2006, saw the downturn, got the most expensive MBA I could have ever asked for. And then we grew the business. We're very fortunate and blessed as we grew the business with some great people, great partners. We sold the business to USLBM July 1st of 2021. And I took a role as a regional vice president there right after we joined. And as of May 31st, I left. And so now I am unemployed. Thankful for the experience I had there. We can get into that as we go through, but excited to be at home. Took my son to a haircut right before this. I haven't done that in my life. And so just excited about that. I got a wife, Molly, who's wonderful, 3 kids. Nate's 13, my daughter Hollis is 11, and then Walker's 7.
Shout out to Walker and everybody out there. So, what was your wife's name?
Molly.
Hi, Molly. Shout out to Molly. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you are unemployed. How does that feel?
It feels great. It's really, I mean, you know how it is. The grind that you go through, owning a business, running a business. It's a lot.
How many people when you sold revenue, if you can share that, if not, but how many people?
So we were north of 200 million in revenue. We had about 220 plus people, between 220 and 225 at the time. And I mean, it grew.
At your peak, how many hours were you working? Like your heyday, good or bad?
So the most I was working, I'll tell you, was in 2013. I was probably working between 85 and 100 hours a week. I was opening up the gates, closing the gates Saturday. It was
not including golf outing, social events, anything like that.
No, yeah, no, not including it.
Put that on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so from 10 years later, you're sitting here talking to me. Took your son to a haircut from 100-hour work weeks.
Right,
crazy.
It's amazing.
How's your mind? I mean, is it like a rat, like chasing something in your brain at all time, like some anxiety?
Yeah, it's interesting. I still wake up at 4:30, and my mind just kicks back on, just like it's done every day for 20 years. And so being able to quiet some of those voices will be an interesting journey, but kind of going through that journey right now of what does it look like to think about this in a different way? How do I show up for my kids? How do I show up for my wife, my community in this time? Because really what this is about is re-engaging in something that I've missed some of over the years. So 2013 was, I mean, we were growing like crazy and we lost an operations manager. I was stepping into that role and was just grinding.
Like it felt good at the time, Superman cape, like in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, this is what I was made for.
Right. Exactly. Hey, you and I, we've talked about the wartime generals and peacetime generals. Yeah. Man, I thought I could play hero ball and be a wartime general and just take it all on my shoulders. And it was great for the business and terrible for the family. And so that was a challenge. But so then kind of got some balance. And then, when I took this role as an RVP, I was on the road a lot. So in an airplane, in hotels, seeing customers, vendors, other businesses, which was fantastic. I learned a ton. But at the same time, being away from my family, something had to take a back seat. And so my kids and wife did to an extent, but I tried to make sure that I was here as much as possible for them. But then there was all the other things that I had a lot of joy around, involved in my community, nonprofits, charities, boards at work I was doing, and that had to give. And I missed a lot of things with my family, and then I missed a lot of that. And I felt like that's somewhere where I could add value to those nonprofits and ministries, to the community. And I just felt alive when I was doing that sort of stuff. And so getting back to that, I'm super excited about.
So you've got a little salt and pepper, but you look like you're about 21. So how old are you?
43.
43. Okay. So that's pretty crazy, right? So this is awesome. So what are you going to do when you grow up, Jon?
I don't know. That's part of what's exciting is, I know I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to take this time off when other people would really like to be able to do that. I've been blessed and put in a position that I can. And so what I'm trying to be is real intentional about not being too quick to say yes, because I'm a doer. I love creativity. I love creation. I love vision casting, leading. And so I have to think about that differently, just change my mindset for this period as I am intentional about through the end of the year. I'm going to be camp counselor, youth coach, like teaching the kids through the end of the year.
By end of the year, you mean December 31st? You're going to make it that long?
I'm going to make it that long.
Wow. What a commitment. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Is that a faith? How much? I know you're very strong in your faith.
Yeah.
How much is this a faith commitment to make it to the end of the year?
It's really intentional around that. It's honoring my wife too, right? Molly is amazing and she's been super patient. And she's like, when we were talking about what does this look like? And I said, well, let me kind of recuperate, get some rest, get some healing, things like that. And maybe 3 months, 6 months, 9 months before I start thinking about anything else. And she's like, how about you give me the holidays? Give us the holidays where we can be together as a family through Christmas. Because with the number of locations that you have and being able to lead well and put my arm around people, Christmas time is wild because I only had 6 locations, and I'm going to Christmas parties and Christmas lunches and taking gifts and handing that stuff out. And it just makes that season crazy. So we've never had kind of a calm holiday season, Christmas season. And so I'm going to wade through that with the family, maybe go on a trip. Who knows?
So part of your story, obviously, or a big part of your story now at this point, professionally, not personally, is you're 40 years old. Somebody from USLBM calls you. I assume they called you, or did you reach out to them?
No, they called me. Yep.
They called me. Yeah. So they called you, which happened to me, as you know. I know you know that. Maybe not everybody knows that. They called me in 2013, which they do. I made an attractive offer, which I really all I had to do is sign the paperwork to get it done. Decided not to. Best for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we didn't, but God thing. But you did. So how did it go from, walk me through it in your version of this story? Walk us through it.
Sure. So, you and I I think you and I met probably around the same time I'd met some of the folks at USLBM at some of these speaking, I'd speak at.
We should take a step back. how do we know each other, right? That might be
right. Yeah. That's good. So I think you and
Georgia, I'm from Wisconsin. How do we know each other?
You and I met at an LBM Journal conference where you spoke. And I think it was Bradley Hartman that was like, hey, y'all should know each other. Maybe that was later. I don't know.
North Carolina.
It was in North Carolina. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina. You spoke there. I spoke on a panel with a couple other folks that I can't remember who it was at this point, but and so I was like, yeah, I want to go meet him. So we ended up talking that time, and then we end up together in an executive committee on building products in South Carolina, standing out on the pier, you and me and one other guy, till the last guy's out there talking about sales and margin. And my favorite, can I tell the watch story?
I tell it all the time. So 100%. I love it.
It's one of my favorite stories. One of the other guy that was there, good friend of mine, and
we're pretty blitzed. Let's be honest, right? Like we're pretty high energized up at this point. So he's on the sober talking, boardroom, right? We're out having cocktails.
Yeah,
it's me. We're high energy, right? All testosterone, if you will. Go ahead.
And so we start talking, and you start talking about high margin customers. Why would you spend your time wasting your time on low margin customers? And it's funny. I actually have a Apple Watch on, but the guy takes off his watch and he says, "Joel, do you see this watch? This is a beautiful watch. It's an expensive watch. It's got big gears and it's got small gears, and that's what makes this watch work. You got to have the big gears and the small gears." And you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And so we walk off. We finally walk inside. The next morning, I'm sitting at breakfast with this guy, and we're sitting there eating our breakfast. And all of a sudden, plop, on the table drops an Apple Watch with a note that says, "This is the Apple Watch. It's the most accurate and largest selling watch in the world. It has no gears." And I mean, I've laughed about that that's probably been 8 years, and I've told that story a million times. And so that's how we know each other. We got to know each other through.
I couldn't sleep thinking about it. This guy was, and he'll never watch the episode, but right, he's old, white, and stale, right? Like, so we're like picking on him, and he's treating us. I mean, again, this maybe 8, 9 years ago, but we're early mid 30s, early 40s for me maybe, and he's treating us like we're 17 years old, right? He's talking slow, and he's like waving this watch. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Like, dude, I know the industry. We grew up in it.
Yeah.
Like, shut up. And I think the dude was selling in Atlanta. I think he was in Atlanta selling like windows for 2 margin or something.
Charlotte.
It was so ridiculous. Yeah, Charlotte. It was so freaking ridiculous.
But so that's how we know each other. So I'd be on some of those speaking deals, and I ended up, talking to some of the folks at USLBM. And so I'd talked with them on and off for years. Wasn't super interested at the time. When I joined Brand Vaughan in 2006, we went from, 60-ish million in sales and 100+ people down to 16 million in sales and 31 people. So we saw the devastation to our.
That bad in 08.
We did. Yeah. So Atlanta went from 63,000 housing starts down to 4,700. And there was 120 lumberyard locations in 06. It got down to 20.
So let's do this again. 63,000 housing starts to what?
4,700.
And Wisconsin does 3,500 a year. We're such a small player. Right. And that's, for anybody, team members listening, regionally listening here in Wisconsin, that's why we don't see these huge spikes and huge downturns.
Exactly.
I mean, that's huge percentages. We'll go from 4,000, almost break the bank because we still have enough labor to do it. And then at some point we might go down to 3,000, right, which is 15%. But those are wild spikes by any means.
Yeah, not like 90+%.
Yeah, and all things considered, we're just a little goldfish as far as what we do, in Wisconsin here. So,
well,
cool.
Well, so I mean, so going through that and seeing what that meant to our business, and standing in our facility in Tucker with my dad and saying, what are we going to do with this place? We're using 30% of this land. Is this going to ever come back? Standing in a bankruptcy attorney's office, just understanding options, right? Hey, if this continues, what do we do? And we were fortunate and blessed, and we ended up having a really good run from 2010 on. We grew like crazy. We got great people, and we just really grew our business. And so when 2020 hit, it was, March 30th, and we're kind of saying the same thing. Some of our builders were like, hey, we really aren't going to be paying our bills until we figure out what's going on. And we never missed a discount to our vendors in 75 years at that point. We never missed a payroll to our employees in our history. And so we started doing cash burn rates and saying, what happens if they are true to that? And they when do we run out of money? And it just gotten to the point, to the size and scale that
that's a fun exercise.
Oh my gosh. Talk about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I wish I was up. I could sleep that late at the time.
Yeah.
And we talked around that same time. We were talking about how do you lead well through some of these things and figuring out what the world was going to look like. But what we kind of figured out at that point was that, because then it goes the other way and it just takes off and it's growing like crazy. And
yeah, we missed it by a mile, all of us, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a rocket ship to the moon. And the hours continue to pile up. And I was at the point, so it was me and my dad were the only owners. And it was like, all right, well, what are the models for going forward? How do we make this sustainable for our people? How do we make sure we give opportunity to our people, that they have flexibility, we don't lose our best people because they feel like they're hitting a ceiling? How do we continue to invest in the business the right way? And so we kind of built like model A, model B, and model C around, hey, one would be reinvest personally or go get extra debt. B was do something with strategic, like USLBM, and option 3 was a financial, and just kind of thinking about what that looked like. And at the end of the day, what we really rested with was, okay, for the sustainability of our people, to be able to continue to invest, to get the investment that we need to grow for them and get them opportunities and flexibility, whether they want to move up and move to a different market, or they wanted to do these different things, have more money around education and continuing training, better investment in technology, things like that. Going to USLBM was a good decision. And then for our family, it was being able to de-risk in a significant way and add flexibility to our lives. And also being able to think about, maybe this isn't the only thing I want to do the rest of my life. And the only way that happens is having an opportunity to, if it's, have a way to, because if it was still Brand Vaughan owned by Chip and Jon, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today about this. It'd be something different, right? We'd be talking about something, but it wouldn't have been this. And so we joined July 1st of 2021, and the things that we did it for, it's been mission accomplished. It's been great training, education, technology for our team. We've invested in a really meaningful way to be able to add some services and manufacturing that we couldn't otherwise. Our teams had opportunity to go be part of corporate or move to other divisions as they've moved. And so all of those things that we thought about was really successful. For me, we came in and I went to be an RVP, being over, multiple states, and I learned a ton. And I work with really good people. And so that's kind of the hard part of it. But ultimately, my first commitment, my first responsibility is my family. And I saw what it was doing to my family, it was doing to me, to my health. And it wasn't sustainable. And the best thing to do for the company as well was I was trying to figure out, is there a way to do this and not travel so much? Is there a way to do this and not work this many hours? And ultimately, kind of what I rested on was I wouldn't be doing the people that are working for me the right kind of job to be able to lead them the right way if I pulled back and didn't give them quite what they needed. I wouldn't be doing the right job for the company and giving them what they needed to be able to grow, scale, improve, find the right things. And I wouldn't be I'd be 1 foot in each world and not really doing it fully. So they needed somebody that could be fully in it and doing it the right way.
Awesome. Couple of follow-up questions. Did you ever we are an ESOP owner, ESOP company.
Yep.
Basically as all owners have to make these same decisions, right? Do you go strategic? You just keep reinvesting your own money into the company, which I will be doing on our next manufacturing plant, which my attorney and accountants are telling me I'm crazy because they're like, dude, you need to reinvest the money from the ESOP, And I put it back into the ESOP, and I'm like, yeah, well, this one time, it's a really good investment. So I'm putting the money back in for our next manufacturing facility for doors and trim. I'm like, I just want to keep betting on myself. I don't like betting on anybody else. But
Right.
we're doing that. But we decided to go ESOP. Did you ever consider going ESOP? Did you look at that, explore that a little bit, or not really much?
We looked at it just a little bit. I'd be lying to you if I said I really looked at it fully.
But it was equally, you're part of potentially getting out of the company, and ESOP doesn't relinquish management duties, right? So that was part of your decision. So a little bit different for me. I wasn't ready to actually depart from this journey. So ESOP's a little different in our world. So you have a really cool story, and if you're willing to share, that you told me about your third generation. You were talking to your fourth generation son.
Yeah.
Around that time period, you were having anxiety about selling the company as an owner because you have this legacy, grandpa's legacy, future legacy, people that you work with, the community that you live in. And you're like, did I make the right choice? So can you kind of tell me that story? Because that gave me goosebumps, and I teared up like crazy when you shared it with me.
Yeah, it'll be tough to not do it here. So it was Father's Day. So coming up on that. So that would have been Father's Day 2021, 2 years ago. We were going to be telling my siblings that day. And so we were with our kids, and we're like, you know what? We need to tell our kids personally before they hear it in a family Father's Day Zoom call. And so we were at a hotel. We just dropped off one of my kids at camp, and we were sitting there, and we were sitting in this hotel room. And 2 beds on there. We sat on one. The boys, who at the time would have been, I guess, 11 and 5, were sitting on the other bed. And so I kind of explained, guys, we've made the decision that we're going to sell the company to USLBM. It's closing on July 1st. This is going to be a good thing for us. It gives us opportunity, flexibility, kind of give them the whole spiel. My 11-year-old, who's very smart, kind, thoughtful, sensitive kid, gets up and he kind of goes to the other side of the bed, and you can see he's starting to tear up a little bit. And so, he finally comes over and it's like, hugs my wife and says, I just always thought this was going to be a family business. And this is just, I just always thought it was going to be a family business. Meanwhile, the 5-year-old's just bouncing on the bed, bounce, bounce, bounce. And he stops, looks me square in the eye and goes, your ancestors would be so proud of you. And it just broke me in that moment. And I can still feel that feeling that it made me feel at the time. It's to me, that's the Lord speaking through my kids. It's my grandfather speaking through my kids, that I needed that in that moment to hear it. You're okay. You're doing the right thing. So I go into the bathroom, try to collect myself, and I come back out, and my wife's like, Nate, who's my oldest, she says, tell your father what you just told me. He said, Dad, I know you've always told me I can do whatever I want to do. I don't have to be part of the business if I don't want to be, but I still felt a ton of pressure, the burden that I was going to have to take that over. And that's not what I want to do.
At 11.
It was like at 11, he felt a burden of something that I told him, you don't have to worry about this, but he felt it. And it just was this unbelievable affirmation, confirmation to be able to hear that from my boys in that moment, to be like, you're doing this right.
Jon, this is Marcus. Do you think he felt that just from, again, like the hours you put into it over the years and just kind of seeing that? Do you think that's where that kind of came from?
I think so. I think he saw how important, I talk about the families at Brand. I still talk about the families at Brand Vaughan, about how important it is to have that ability to affect other people's lives in a positive way, how to create belonging, create an environment where people who otherwise would not have the opportunity to do that. And the Vaughan name has done that. And it's a wonderful business. And that he sees how much passion I have around it. He goes to our family picnics, and he could see how engaged I am with the people side of it. And so he, as being a sensitive kid, having a high EQ for someone at that age, I think, Marcus, you're right. I think he felt that and he saw that.
Well, I think it's very hard to explain unless you're in a family-run business. The conversations at Christmas and Thanksgiving revolve around the lumberyard, because that's what we know. You go out to dinner and you buy somebody next to you dinner, and then they come over you and you say, well, that person you see when they're 3 years old, why'd you do that, Dad? They bought lumber from us.
Right.
Yeah. Or they work for us and they're a great person. You go to church. You can't even on vacation at this point with Drexel, I see somebody in a Drexel hoodie, and there's just an understanding of this is how the Fleischmans are.
Right.
Right. It's not persona, it's who we are. But when you go out, you still are part of Drexel, and the kids get that from birth. Like there's no disconnect when you're a family-run business. There's no and I'm not complaining at all, but there is no point where you go home and you're not working.
No,
not like grinding, but it's part of the kids' lives. It's the
always
shirt they wear. It's always, Dad, what were you doing? You know, I'm just writing a list for things I got to work on Monday. Can you explain that? How was your day? Moving into bigger conversations, you know, and I'm sure you did that too, John. Even driving around, my kids thought I was a carpenter until they were like 10, because I'd be like, we did that project, we did this project. You know, they thought I built every multi-family in the state, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I remember driving once, and one of my kids were like, but like, you didn't actually build it. I'm like, oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
In fact, I didn't actually write up a ticket for it, deliver it, send materials. I honestly did nothing, but
I didn't collect the money. I didn't make the call. But
but technically, my pride in it is the same as whoever owns that 8,000 square foot house on this lake, right? Like, I feel like I actually own it. I really did nothing. I've done absolutely nothing, but I knew we furnished it, so I took full credit. Like, hey guys, Dad did this, right? House. I'm sure you grew up the same way. My dad 100%. I still drive with my dad, and he'll tell these stories in the 70s. This one and that guy never paid his final bill, and that house was leaning a quarter of an inch. And it's crazy, but that's part of that there for sure. So interesting. I think it's a fun story that we should share. Kind of a fun story is that it happened, and I'll never forget that. It's really definitely a story, a part of my book, and getting to know you and how awesome you are and how much integrity you have. You may not remember that. It was a busy day for you. You texted me before you told your team, hey, Joel, before you get out there, I haven't talked to you in a year, maybe two. Before it gets out there, I'm telling the team today that I sold the USLBM. I woke up with that text like at 6:30. I don't know if you remember it. I just responded to him, welcome to the dark side with a Darth Vader. That's it. You texted back, you're like, I figured it'd be something like that. Like,
nothing else.
No why. It was just, welcome to the dark side. Like, it's over. You're dead to me.
You're dead to me.
That was great. That was great. I loved it. Yeah. Cool. I appreciated that. It's like you left the SEC and joined the Big Ten, right? I'm like, whatever.
Oh man, how easy would that be?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. What's going on? So you guys are big national champs. Let's do a little football talk. National champs. What's this year look like? You guys ranked 1 right now?
You know, everybody's riding high. I've thought this was our year for 40 years, and it wasn't. And now we've won 2 in a row, and it's like, no. We can't, we can't start saying that it's our year. We're not all of a sudden Alabama who's won, 8 with Saban or whatever. Like we gotta stay humble. I think we've got a really strong team. Kirby is ridiculous what he does from a recruiting and a coaching up and the people that he surrounds himself with. So I got high confidence.
Is he a beloved guy? I mean, he's never going to listen to our podcast, so if he's not, it's okay. I don't want you to. You got season tickets? Like, are you a dude?
No, so I had season tickets coming out of college, but then when the world fell apart in the building industry, I was like, I'm giving that up. I mean, so, and then by the time I could, it's like, I can't catch up. And I'm not going to sit in the, 132nd row. So I just buy tickets when I want to go. Yeah, but he's beloved. He went here. He was, kind of Charlie Hustle, cornerback, set some records, and he's, went to the evil empire. Speaking of, went to Alabama, came back, kind of the homeboy coming home, and he's awesome.
That's great.
John, who's your all-time favorite Bulldog?
DJ Shockley. And I'll tell you why I say that fast. DJ Shockley was a 5-star recruit. He was the number 2, I think, quarterback in the nation when he was coming out of high school. He got recruited by a coach that ended up leaving, Jim Donnan. He came in and played for Mark Richt. And there was a freshman that came in. He was a redshirt freshman, David Green, and he ended up getting the starting job as DJ was going to redshirt. And he could have transferred in this world. He could have transferred anywhere in the world. And at the time, he still could have transferred, sat out a year, played at Florida State or Alabama or, Texas or Oklahoma. But he believed in the team and he stuck it out. and he stayed with the team, and he sat behind David Green, who ends up being the winningest quarterback in Georgia history. He comes in and he runs some plays, he runs some series and all the scores. Great. He comes in his senior year, he wins everything. He gets hurt for one game. We lose the one game, he gets hurt. And he comes back and he wins the rest of his games. It had been a college football playoff situation. We probably would have made it at the time, but it was that loyalty, that commitment, that hard work. He's now does radio broadcasts for the Falcons and Dogs, and he's just incredible. So DJ Shockley, it's hard for me to get away from saying, and I love David Green too, by the way. I've gotten to know him personally. He's an amazing human, but those two guys, those are my guys.
See, John's a good dude.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't see that one coming, did you?
I didn't. I was thinking more like Robert Edwards, Hines Ward, something like that. Not
Oh
DJ
gosh,
Shockley.
Boss Bailey. I love Champ Bailey. Herschel. There's a lot to pick from, but that guy, that's my guy.
That's a good story, though. I like that.
That's a really good story.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I remember David Green. David Green was a lefty, right?
He was a lefty. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's kind of challenging question. You may not be able to answer it. We'll just assume you have a non-compete clause, right? Now, obviously, you cannot give away trade secrets, but your perspective, your personal intel, you're on the East Coast. You were regional, which meant you had to go to dinners and conferences with other USLBM people, just best practices. Are there a few nuggets you can share with us, Wisconsin folks, of things we should be looking out for, industry trends? Things used to emerge on the East and West Coast, and then they would slowly bleed. With the internet, that's all sped up quite a bit as far as trends and regional trends, but even down to color schemes, how you come to marketplace, product lines, services that maybe we should be offering. Anything you could share? And you might be like, I really can't think of anything or nothing I want to trouble for.
What I would say is I didn't think about budgeting and business planning near as much as an independent business as I did with USLBM. And I think there's a lot of advantage to that.
And John, I think probably people don't know that are really close to this. How big is, and then this is totally public, again, ballpark, how big is USLBM?
They're 10 plus billion.
So they're 10 plus billion. It's a financial company, right, owned by financial advisors, or however how do you guys say it? How did you say it?
Bain Capital. Yeah, Bain Capital is a private equity sponsor.
Right. Private equity people, 10 billion plus. LT Gibson started 20 years ago, not that long ago.
2009. I mean, so it's 14 years ago. It's an incredible story.
And then regional here, that would be Wisconsin Building Supply was actually their very first location in Green Bay, was their world headquarters.
Yep.
Casey Stock, God rest his soul, real legendary up here. Strong competitor for us. We were real glad when he sold. But turned into Wisconsin Building Supply, and Lampert's would be a little bit regional here. So yeah, you went from I didn't write it down, 200 million company to a 10 billion.
Yeah.
So maybe let's do it this way. What constraints did you wish you would have known from the 10 billion company to the 200 million company? What different things? You alluded to budgets, but go deeper with that, because I think that's where you're going. So
thinking about, we run so fast and so hard as independent businesses. We don't always take the time to stop, think about not just, hey, what does this year hold, but what does the next 3 years hold? And nobody ever budgets or business plans around dips in the market. So you're always thinking aspirationally as you go through that. But being able to stop and say, okay, here is all of our options. And sometimes we have the illusion of choice, because it's like, oh, we can choose these things, but we have so many choices, and we don't pre-choose what we're going to really invest in, that we get to that moment of choice and it's like, I don't know what to choose, because we have not made this.
Choice is great. That's really good. Yeah.
So you
we're
don't make
we're walking down the food aisle. I'll decide when I get there. And you're like, I don't know.
Right. Pick up jelly at the grocery store, and you stand in front of this thing and it's got 80 jellies, 5 different kinds. I don't know.
Guy shopping.
So keep going with it. Yeah, exactly, Marcus.
But it's being able to step back and say, all right, if all these things work out, how do we want to invest well? How do we want to think about how do we invest in our people and manufacturing and distribution and locations and vendors? because I can promise you our vendors are thinking 3, 5, 7 years down the line, and they're thinking about what happens if, whatever partnerships change, they get bought by USLBM, they go to do something different, they get consolidated, they grow, they get a new leader that tears it down. Like, we've got to be having our chess pieces in the right place so that one of these pawns falls, we know what our next move is. And so as independent businesses, I maybe I'm just speaking for me and everybody else was really good at it, but being able to step back and be super intentional and not just have the leader do it, not just the president do it, but have the department heads, your offensive and defensive coordinators, like sitting in the meetings and being like, I've always thought about, we have to do offsite construction, putting windows in wall panels, and that's the future. And if we don't get ahead of that, then we're going to get passed by. And then all of a sudden you're there and you don't do something about it. And you've lost all this market share because you didn't make a plan around it. So I think that, and then being able to hold people. So I've always talked about accountability. The way I've defined accountability at Brand Vaughan and tried to carry that on was defining what success looks like and holding people to that standard. People really misuse accountability in my mind around people getting written up and fired and all that sort of stuff. But to me, like, hey, if I'm going to compensate people, it's going to be around accountability. We're going to say, hey, this is what success looks like. Let's hold them to that standard. Doing a good business planning and budgeting process to be able to say, hey, leadership accountability looks like this. These are behaviors, these are numbers, and these are like cultural things. And being able to be really good at doing that was incredibly helpful for me.
And how much time as a regional vice president did you put towards planning? If it's a 40-hour work week, what was the percentage of that put towards big picture stuff, not day to day? All of it?
No, it would go in spurts. So it would be segments of time, or it'd be a month where I was probably putting 10 or 15, 20 hours a week into budgeting, business planning, looking at.
Is that like template spreadsheet based? Like USLBM's like, fill this out?
Sure.
Kind of.
Yeah, a little bit of that, a little bit of free form. And it, okay. I mean, it changes, right? I mean, different people get in and they want to see it different ways. And, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. My 3-year plan at Brand Vaughan was on 3 pieces of paper. And was it as well thought out as it needed to be? Probably not. But a business plan, something of that scale, is going to be, significantly larger.
Do you think at all, and it may not, my issue with that sometimes it voids the creativity.
Sure.
Hey, something pops up and it's like, whoa. And you got to be careful because Joel's into the shiny toys, right? Like, oh, look, a squirrel, right? So yeah. I can't say, okay, we're going this way, right? And we're too big to do that now. Maybe that work would be real small. But now that we're larger, that boat won't shift as quick. And that's warranted. It just happened today, actually, where Andy Ruther, thank God, he's kind of my yin to yang sometimes. He was like, slow down. Let's look into this. Let's not just create a war here that doesn't exist, right? Which was great. He looked into a department that was going to work Saturday. And I said, okay, let's just throw a bunch of labor at it so they don't have to work Saturday. He's like, does anybody even know if they're busy? I'm like, oh. That's a good point. A week and a half ago, they were busy. So everyone assumed they still were. So just things like that. But my only hesitation was something that detailed, or is there a section of like creativity, flexibility?
I think you got to build it into it, right? I mean, the bigger you get, it's harder to do to make some of those fast twitch fiber moves. Yeah, I think you got to build in some of that as well, because if opportunities change, right? I mean, you think about what happened in 2020. If we had built our plan in April of 2020 for the rest of the year and not deviated from it, you and me, we would have been toast. But
literally, we
wouldn't
have been able to handle the workload. Customers would have fired us. That kind of almost happened with Justin, right? Because we were so conservative, but we needed to be so aggressive. It was really tough. That was bad. Right. In a good way. Thank goodness wasn't the opposite of that. But I'm going to ask you one more question based on that. I think we'll spin that to a positive. I don't think that's going to come across as being negative to the company you had working with at USLBM. What are some advantages for independence that you now see? And again, if you're like, no, I'll take a pass on that one, I totally get it.
Yeah, I should probably take a pass on that one.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I tried. That's like asking a former coach of Saban's, right?
Right.
Like, hey, give me a couple plays that would work against the Bama offense. This year.
Yeah.
Like, what? I think Nick's going to be texting me in like 30 seconds. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So we're at that time. Crazy, Jon. So give us some words of wisdom. I'm going to expand it a little bit, right? We always do the big giant billboard. I want you to do that with us. You get a big giant billboard, what's on it and why. And if there's any parting words too, you can kind of host that as well. But we're already at that time because this is going way too fast. I'd love to be having beer until the crack of dawn, honestly. So
yeah, no kidding.
Jon can do it. He's got time.
I got time, but no. Yeah, I love talking to you. It inspires different thought and things like that. So I've thought about that billboard, and this is what I would put as something that I've used with my team and tried to teach myself, because sometimes I get outside of it. But it's humility is a superpower. Like, exercise your superpower. Humility is a superpower, because I see so many people that get down the line and they start reading their own news clippings and they start believing their own press, and they don't think they're going to make mistakes, and hubris takes all of them down. And I think when you're meeting with team members, and this is family, this is community, this is work, this is church, this is all of it, is, man, if you walk into situations with humility and not entitlement, it creates better gratitude. It makes you enjoy the situation better. You're more relatable. You're not walking into the room saying, I'm the most important person in the room, I'm going to shut up and listen. And then when they're done saying whatever they're saying, I'm not really listening. I'm going to tell them what we're doing. Or do the flip of it. You just walk out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And it just ruins any creativity in the room. I think we lack that in so many areas, that the more that we can hold on to that humility as a superpower, the better our communities are going to be, our families are going to be, our businesses are going to be. It was funny. I told the story to a friend of mine today when the last month, people have been just, we announced in April that I was transitioning out by the end of May. And so people were just really overly kind and gracious about, their experience with me over time. And so whether it's lunches or whatever, we had a lunch on a Tuesday, and I left that lunch, and everybody was, giving me hugs and telling me thank you and all this sort of stuff. And I called my sister, and you can always rely on a sister. I'm like, Jen, tell me I suck. She's like, you suck. Nobody likes you. This is fun. What else can I do? Right. And it was just this, like, I don't want to buy into this, because all of a sudden I'm going to be gone. And nobody tells you when you're leaving the things that you did wrong, or why they don't like you, or why you're a jerk. They're only telling you the things that the people are going to come up and say, hey, I really appreciate how you did this for me. And just got to stay grounded in that humility. Otherwise, it's just like, yeah, I'm pretty good. I guess they're right. I am pretty awesome. So just trying to ground myself in that humility is a superpower.
Well, and you and I are faith guys, which is a part of the reason we get along, right? So God guys. And I think when you were saying that, it kind of flashed in my head. Phil 4:13, right? Like one of the most popular Bible quotes ever, especially if you're an athlete. I can do all things through him who strengthened me, right? And that can come across as that superpower, right? Tim Tebow, 4:13. I see a tattooed on a lot of these biceps. I say it a lot, right? Yeah. But I can make it about you. But if you actually listen to the quote, I can do all things through him, which strengthens me, right? Which means I'm nothing without God, which should be the most. Humility is a superpower. That's the biggest one, right? You can do leadership. You can do, like, all the things you said, family, being humble. There's so much to humility, but at the end of the day, it's really about God, right? Like, it doesn't even, like, a lot of times people say, hey, you must be really stressed out about Drexel. And I'm always like, I don't know. We're all going to die. I'm just trying to get to heaven. Right. And I go through a process of, I walk down a little main street here in town, which is 35,000 people. Main Street, very small. There's all these 3,500. We had no stop and go lights. And I see these remnants of past businesses down Main Street. And 150 years ago, there was a Jon Vaughan and a Joel Fleischman and a Marcus, and they were a shoe cobbler, right? And they spent their life and they were stressed. They didn't know how they were going to pay the bills. Or There was somebody super successful and thought they were the mayor of Camelsport because they have the world's best hardware store and they figured life out and they have the biggest Model T. They're all dead.
Yeah.
None of it matters. There's no legacy. We don't even know their names. It doesn't matter. And if we do know their name, it's maybe on the side of the brick and we don't know why and we don't care.
Yeah.
So it's all just all white noise. It's just all white noise at all, which is very humility.
I had a good friend who told me the graveyard is filled with irreplaceable people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's that concept of like, yeah, you can be irreplaceable, but you're also going to be in the same place as everybody else in the grave.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was very humble for you, right? On your way out saying goodbye, but they're rewarding you. But yet you're like, well, the company's going to still go on. So I wasn't that great, which I went to 4 Pens about 6 months ago, maybe a little longer already.
Probably 7, 8, yeah.
7, 8, and the day that I miss, it's not that big a deal. Like,
Yeah.
It's fine. No one cares.
Right.
I go to 3 days a week. Like you said, it's a challenge when you're like the guy where you're like at this position, I need to put this time in to do the job. But yeah, the balance part of it, if I'm going to make it to quote unquote the end, whatever the end is, right, and not burn out, I kind of need to do this too. So, well,
Right.
John, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Always. God
Always.
bless you and your family.
Same
When
to
you
you,
figure it out, when you start figuring it out, give us a call, even in a non-compete. You can work at the coffee shop or something. We have other
That's
side
right.
gigs that are not
I can-
lumberyard related. So
I can move pallets of beer and be a barista.
we like that. That'd be great.
You're the Drexel Light guy.
Yeah, the Drexel, you be the Drexel Light spokesman. I don't know, Georgia guy.
Don't put my face on any cans. We don't need any of that in our
I mean, it
lives.
won't work if you be bashing Big Ten stuff.
Yeah, I know. We got pickle now. Like, we're coming for you guys. We got pickle.
Yeah.
We got things happening up here. We're gonna be all right. We don't play Georgia, do we? Play Bama this year? Next year we got a 2-year with Bama. So
That'll be fun.
yeah, we're gonna lose 53-3, but it'll be fun. All right. Good to see you, John. Take care. God bless. Thanks for coming
Brother.
on.
God bless.
All right, Pete.